First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the show. My name is Bill Simmons. Let's get to this week's guest. He won 5 championship rings during his 15-year NBA career. He's the only guy who played with Shaq, MJ, and Tim Duncan. He called NBA games with Marv Albert on TNT for the past 4 years. And this summer, he became the new GM of a Suns team that's favored to win the 2008 title. Steve Kerr, when is your lucky streak ever going to end?
I hope not for a while, but you hit that right, man. It seems like everywhere I've gone, I've ended up next to superstars. I mean, you're by the way, you're the only person who knows that I played with Shaq.
Yeah, well, it was 1 year.
1 year in Orlando, way back. I think it was his rookie year. Actually, I got traded there from Cleveland, and I've played with the best of the best, and sat next to the best in Marv Albert. So I've been pretty lucky.
Well, the other good thing about your career was that when you were starting in your formative years, you got to back up Mark Price for a couple years, who was really, in my opinion, the most underrated guy of the whole MJ era. Yeah,
Mark was incredible, and I learned so much from him, and just having to guard him every day, and that was a really important time in my career because I didn't know if I was going to make it in the NBA. I had 1 year in Phoenix on the injured list, and they traded me to Cleveland, and I spent the next 3 years learning from Mark, and I was nowhere near as talented as he was, but I learned so much from him, and I was able to get a lot better just being around him.
He ripped the heart out of the 1992 Celtics. I don't know if you remember this, but it was Larry Bird's last season. He was like wearing the 50-pound back brace, and I think we were up 2-1 in the series. And it was game 4, and we really had a chance to put the Cavs away. I think we were up 4 with like a minute left, and we just scored. It was home. Crowd's going crazy. Yep. And Price gets the inbounds pass and just goes full court on us for the layup. It was one of those like really shrewd point guard plays that you don't see a lot of anymore. Just like it's my time to take out the crowd right now. And the whole series was different after that, and then they won in overtime.
Yeah, what I remember most about that series, I was on the end of the bench most of it, but I remember the very last game, Game 7 in Cleveland. It was a blowout. We won easily, and we're celebrating in the locker room, and the ball boy came in and said, Larry Bird just asked for the game ball. And
really?
And it was, everybody immediately knew, wow, he guy's going to retire. I mean, this is Larry Bird. He's going to retire. Why else would you want the game ball when you've lost by 30 points?
Yeah.
But that was, he hadn't said anything to that point, and I guess he made it official maybe a month later. But that was a strange situation, and it bummed me out because even though I was a Laker fan growing up, I loved watching Bird play, and that was an amazing era.
Yeah, and that was kind of a sad series because, like I said, he was wearing the gigantic back brace. And there was like a little bit of an alpha dog issue with him and Reggie Lewis because Lewis was the best guy on the team that year, and Bird was still Bird. So then at the end of the games, it became a question of, well, do we pay tribute to the legend or do we go to the guy who's actually going to get us the basket that we need? And right. I really feel like that's the reason they lost. But those were some really good Cavs teams in the early 90s.
Yeah, those were great teams. They just happened to keep running into Jordan and the Bulls.
Yeah.
But you're right, Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, Ron Harper, Craig Elo. I'm probably forgetting some key guys too. Well, Price, of course. And Price, the thing that I love about Price is he was an innovator. He was really the first guy to split the double team. Now you see every point guard in the NBA do it. But, in the late 80s, Detroit started really trapping hard on screen and rolls, and it was a really effective defense. And Price was the first guy to figure out, wow, if I go hard right in between those two guys, and keep my dribble low, I can split it and completely break down the defense. Nobody else used to do that. And so, Price is a guy who really changed the way the game's played in that dynamic. It was very interesting.
I feel like those Cleveland teams were like the mirror image of the Utah teams in the West. Like they just came along at the wrong time. But then the Cleveland era ended, but the Utah, Malone and Stockton just kept going and going, and then eventually the West was weak enough that they could make the finals for a couple of years. But that's all another story.
I think that's a great analogy. Very similar in terms of just consistency and, really solid play. I think the difference was that Stockton and Malone were physical specimens that basically extended the Jazz's run for another 7 or 8 years. Mark Price had a lot of injury problems, and his career didn't last nearly as long as Stockton's. And Nance was at kind of near the end of his run by the time he came to Cleveland, so he only had I think about a 3 or 4 year run there.
And Doherty
so
too.
We couldn't extend it out. Yeah, and Doherty too because of the back injury. So we just couldn't sustain it, and that's when I jumped ship and went over to play for Chicago.
Well, it seemed like you had so much fun announcing with Marv these past few years. How difficult was it to walk away from the easy TV gig and take the Suns job?
It was tough because I did love the job. Absolutely loved working with Marv. He's the best. He's the voice of the NBA. But he's much more than that. He became a really good friend, and he's really fun. He's got a very dry sense of humor. I know you had him on your show.
Yes.
So you know how funny the guy is, and I just enjoyed being around him and our whole crew. And you're right. It's compared to what I'm doing now, there's not a whole lot of responsibility. You just have to follow the league and do your homework, but you're not responsible for wins and losses, and there's not much pressure, and so it wasn't easy walking away. I just felt like this was a great opportunity, and I'm young. I still have a long time to go in my career to do different things. Maybe I'll go back to TV one day after I get fired from this job. I don't know, but this was a great opportunity. I felt like I had to take it.
I feel like being a basketball announcer, it's like the same things that people try to sell you on when they say that teaching is a good job. Like, oh, it's great, you get the summers off. Only you guys make like 20 times as much money. But there's a dark side. There's a dark side to being an NBA GM, and it's called the luxury tax. And this summer, you pulled the trigger on one of the most lopsided trades in sports history. Kurt Thomas and 2 number 1s for a second-round pick, which was done entirely for luxury tax reasons.
Yeah.
In your wildest dreams, did you ever imagine this would be your first move as an NBA general manager?
Yeah. I knew that my first move would be something similar because, I knew what I was getting into when I took the job. Our cap number, our luxury tax number was really pretty bad. And so I knew coming in that, my whole goal was going to be to try to maintain our core, which is difficult to do these days. But I wanted to maintain the core, but the only way I was going to do it would be to unload somebody like Kurt, who's not really part of the core, but a very good player. And it's just, it was a difficult thing to do, but it had to be done. And this allowed us to keep, Sean and Amari and Steve and Boris and all these guys together. And I think we have a good run in here, the next few years, a good run in front of us. But there are difficult decisions to be made at times, and this was one of them.
And with the luxury tax, which has been in existence, I think, for like 5-6 years, but the Suns, I think, have lost, 4 number 1s now? Or 5 number 1s, just because to try to keep this nucleus together. If there wasn't a luxury tax, not only would you have the guys you have, but you'd have the number 7 pick from that, which it turned out to be Luol Deng that year. You'd have the Rajon Rondo pick. Do you like the luxury tax? You can't like it, right?
I don't think any GM likes it because you want the flexibility to sign whoever you want, but it's the reality. You have to the league has to be financially viable, and I know that. And I was a player. I was a union rep during the negotiations. I know that teams were losing money before the luxury tax, and it is a vehicle to control spending and to keep owners from outspending each other in a competition. And I do think it's important for the league to be stable financially. And this is a vehicle that makes that happen. There is a downside, but all in all, I think we have a pretty good model. Every team in our league has the opportunity to be competitive, and that's the main thing. I mean, you don't have smaller market teams that are just out of the running from day one. Everybody's got a shot. I mean, San Antonio's won 3 championships now as one of the smallest markets in the league. So I think the model works.
I'm not as high on it as you. I do think, I feel like it's tougher to be a GM now because everyone's so afraid to take a chance, especially with the luxury tax, that now it's turned into a situation where almost every deal involves teams trying to dump contracts or trying to fix some mistake they've made. And then you look at the last 2 years, Miami won the title in 06, the Spurs won the title in 07. Neither of them made a deadline move because they were basically like, we're in the mix, screw it, let's see what happens. Have we reached a point where it's almost impossible for contenders to improve their teams beyond a certain point?
Well, I don't know if it's impossible. I think this year is going to be interesting at the trade deadline because there are a lot of teams. I think there are 9 or 10 teams that are either right at the tax or just over. And so there are, I think, some potential trade deadline moves. But again, as you said, most of them are cost-cutting moves. But that does allow somebody else, if you've managed your cap well, then that allows you to come in and maybe steal a guy. So, I mean, a lot of it is just how well you manage the cap and how well you kind of plan for the future. And, teams make mistakes. That's the nature of the business. It's not a science. You make mistakes and you have to deal with it, but what you have to do is try to limit your mistakes as much as possible. But, I understand. I mean, as a fan, the luxury tax is no fun. But, if you're in the business and you want the NBA to do well financially and you want the teams to be stable and sound and not moving around from city to city or folding, then you understand that it's probably necessary to have this in place.
I feel like it protects the teams from some mistakes, but on the other hand, then you see somebody like Rashard Lewis, who's a borderline all-star, not a franchise player, and he signs for $113 million or whatever it was, and it's like, all right, maybe this isn't working exactly like we thought, but the one thing that I think is interesting is that there seems to be, I don't want to say an increase in the talent of the GMs, whatever, but it just seems like the GMs are a little bit shrewder. And you look at the trades that Sam Presti made in Seattle, and you're looking at what you're doing with the Suns rationally. Do you think we're reaching a point where we won't see those bad trades anymore? Like we'll see almost teams rather not do anything than make a bad trade?
Well, I think most of the bad ones in the last decade have been made by teams that really were not budget conscious. Teams that just said, well, screw it, we'll just add another $10 million in salary and we'll add more talent. And maybe those teams didn't really take chemistry into the equation, and they ended up maybe recycling one bad contract for another. So I think as teams become more budget conscious, I think they will make better decisions because you see it has repercussions for years on end.
Yeah, but better decisions is bad for me because then I can't make fun of the GMs. I want more bad decisions. Thank God for Otis Smith this summer.
Well, as soon as I had to make that Kurt Thomas deal, I decided I didn't want to log on to ESPN.com for a few weeks. I didn't want to see you just blasting me.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, how much money did that save you guys? Like $20 million? What was $16
million actually, because we were way over the tax. So $8 million in salary and $8 million in tax. And for us, we're counting on those 2 first-round picks that we gave up to be late first. If we're as good as we think we're going to be, then they're late first. And if that's the case, then I think we're going to be fine.
I think so too. And then I hear Steve Nash is in New York, playing pickup soccer in Central Park and playing playground pickup games. You might have to lock him in his house during the summer to make sure he doesn't get hurt.
I know. You know what though? That's why you love Steve Nash, and that's why he is who he is. And you just have to kind of cross your fingers and hope he doesn't get hurt. But I think the fact that he plays soccer and played it growing up and played hockey, I see it in his basketball. I see the angles that he finds, and it's fascinating to watch Nash play because there are so many different influences you can see in his game because he plays differently than everybody else, and I think a lot of that is his soccer background.
Yeah, Hakeem had that too, I think.
Yep.
I think he had the soccer. He did, not with the passing angles as much, but kind of just how unique his game was. And I always thought it was.
But I see it with Kukoc and Manu Ginobili, but it really comes through in the passing. That's where I see it. And those guys were always more willing to take risks. In soccer you take risks. You don't worry about turnovers because they don't turn into points.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I think Ginobili and Nash are high turnover guys because they just they're willing to go for it, and it takes guts to make plays like that.
Let me ask you, you played you played in the 90s when the hand check rules were a lot different and the pick and roll. They clamped down on the high screens and the guys sticking out their legs and guys moving with picks, all that stuff. Then the last 3 years, it became much easier for the penetrating guards to get in the paint, people like Nash, because they relaxed all those rules. How much of that do you think has influenced his rise from one level to another these last 3 years?
I think he would have been good anyway because he was great with Dallas, probably a little under the radar, but he was still really good. But
not like this.
Not like this. No, I think this has kind of been the perfect storm. I think some of it is the rules. I think some of it is that Mike D'Antoni has the perfect style to suit Steve's game, and then some of it is just the talent around him, guys with speed and quickness. And Brian Colangelo, my predecessor, really made the perfect move when he had a young Stoudemire and Joe Johnson and Sean Marion, and I remember the first time I talked to him, he said the guy I've got my eye on is Nash. Once he's a free agent, I think that would make some sense to try to get him. And Brian made a great move, and it all has panned out. But I agree. I think the rule changes have helped him because you used to be able to just put two hands on a guy, and I remember Alvin Robertson used to just basically put one hand on me, and there was nowhere I could go.
Right.
And you can't do that anymore.
Well, because I was watching, and I know you like to watch these old ESPN Classic games too, but I was watching Jordan it was like the 92 or 93 Knicks series, and, it was like a cross between basketball and rugby with the way those guys were guarding him. And I always wonder, God, if you would put the 92 Michael Jordan in 2006, I really think he could have scored 100 points in a game. Yeah. I don't know how you would have defended him.
Unguardable. Because people just used to try to beat him up back then. The Jordan rules with the Pistons and all that stuff, and all of it was based on hammering him and putting two hands on him, and he was just so strong that he would score anyway. So you're right. What would happen now? That's a scary thought.
It's funny, that bringing up Jordan. I was watching Game 1 of the '97 Finals. And that was the game where Malone missed the last two free throws, and then Jordan came down and made the shot at the buzzer and did the still fist pump, the move that Kobe is now stolen. But what I didn't realize was the key to that play was a point guard named Steve Kerr, who they used as a decoy, who ran down the middle, and the Jazz were so flabbergasted, they were so concerned about Kerr that it opened the door for Jordan.
I cut right to the rim, and the defense completely sucked in. They were scared of maybe a quick post up at the rim for me, and that allowed Michael to free himself up and get the shot off. At least that's the way I remember it.
Well, then you made the game-winning shot of the series, right?
Yes, and that was in Game 6, and
I feel like you should have been the MVP of that series.
I think so too, but that makes two of us. So.
Now,
but, that Game 1 shot though really set everything up for the rest of the series, because then Utah made the decision. All right, we're not going to let that happen again, and that's why I was wide open. Eventually in Game 6.
I just thought those two series against Utah, Jordan just raised his game to mythical levels.
Yeah.
And I know it's impossible to answer this, but what was it like to play with somebody who was just that good at their job?
I get that question all the time. What was it like playing with Jordan? And it's impossible to answer. But it was, the one thing that I admired about him more than anything was that he knew every game people were there to see him. And in the course of an 82-game season, it's just impossible to be motivated and fired up and energetic for every game. You just wear down. And he just never seemed to wear down. And every single night, the game was sold out. We'd watch tape of like a Clipper game. The game before ours, there were 5,000 fans in the stands, and we're watching tape of it. And we show up 2 days later, and it's sold out, and there are flash bulbs going off. And he knew they were all there to see him, and he brought it every single night. He would bring it. And it was a show not only for the fans, but for all of us, too, on the bench. So it was so much easier to play with the Bulls because there was just this energy that permeated the building every night, and it made it easier to just play and have fun and enjoy it because it was just a wild ride.
That's interesting because I remember, especially 96, 97, 98 after it came back, the Celtics were terrible. And we had seats right at midcourt. And, Jordan would come out and, like you said, the light bulbs and just the energy of the building, just that this guy was in the building. I don't ever remember seeing another player like that just generated that kind of reaction and electricity just by walking on the court as warm-ups. You know?
I think maybe the only guy these days who comes close is Kobe. There's nobody else does it anymore, and I don't know if anybody did before. Maybe Magic or Bird. I don't think anybody did it like Jordan, but Kobe's as close as it gets now.
And I feel like with Jordan, I do feel like he hasn't been able to match that since he retired, and I'm sure it's just got to be a weird thing to spend your whole career generating electricity like that, and then you retire, and what do you do then?
Yeah, what a letdown, to go to be as dominant as he was and as energetic and just as popular. He's still popular, but I don't think it's possible to get that same rush that he got every night on the floor.
You can come damn close though when you're at $1,000 blackjack table at Charles Oakley. I have to ask you about the whole chemistry thing because if there's been a question with the Nash Aaron Phoenix other than the defense, it's been the alpha dog issues between Stoudemire and Marion. And you played on some of the all-time great chemistry teams, like those Chicago teams after Jordan's comeback. You played on the 99 Spurs, the 03 Spurs, and you also played on the 02 Blazers, which might have been one of the worst all-time chemistry teams ever. Can you win a title without great chemistry?
I don't think so. I don't think you can. I think there has to be a pecking order. There has to be an understanding. There has to be, role playing, and I think I think the chemistry issue has probably been overrated in Phoenix. I think that maybe last year we had a few issues that hurt us, but we were still a great team, and we won 61 games and. Had San Antonio in a pretty tough series, ended up losing, in 6. But, there are always issues on every team for sure. And maybe there were a couple issues, but I think we've got good chemistry. I think we've got guys who understand roles. And if not, then, we have to address that. But I feel great about our team. But I do think it's an essential ingredient if you're going to win a championship. You can't win without that.
But the teams that you played on, they always had like one kind of loose cannon on each team. Like the Bulls teams had Rodman. The 03 Spurs had Steven Jackson. I forget who was the guy in the 99 Spurs, but you can always get away with like the one guy who's a little out there, right?
It was Will Perdue on the 99 Spurs. He was the loose cannon, I think. I think you can have one, maybe two loose cannons. You can't have more than that. And I think on some teams it's good. In fact, I thought Steven Jackson was great for our team.
Yeah.
Because we were too stiff, we were too nice and too predictable, and you need a wild card. And Rodman was perfect for that in Chicago, and Steven was great. I mean, he had more big shots in that 2003 playoff run than probably anybody on the team. So you just have to have a solid foundation, and then you have to have the right pieces in place around those guys. And sometimes a guy like that really can help.
I think that's an interesting point because I actually thought that the Spurs team the next season missed Steven Jackson. They missed like his weird hit or miss energy, and I really thought that was the reason they lost to the Lakers the next year.
Well, it could have been. I had retired after that year, and I did a lot of the Spurs games that season, broadcasting wise. They were still really talented, but it is tough to repeat. I mean, we always hear that cliche, but it's true. The Spurs haven't done it yet, and so they're going to try it this year. But
that was probably the year that it would have happened.
Well, maybe
that was the Derek Fisher year. When he made that ridiculous shot.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, they've had some tough losses. On that 02 Blazers team, you played with J.R. Ryder, Zach Randolph, Reuben Patterson, Rasheed Wallace, Damon Stoudemire. Did you ever go back to your hotel room and just start sobbing?
Well, first of all, Ryder wasn't on that team, but the other guys you mentioned were. No, he wasn't there. He was gone. That was, I actually think that was one of the most important years of my career. because I played on all these other teams that were so on the straight and narrow. You know, they were pretty much pretty simple teams that got along well, and I never really saw the other side of the NBA.
Yeah.
And that gave me a different look, and I think it actually helped me because the previous couple of seasons in San Antonio, I didn't play much, and I had gotten a little timid and conservative, and you know, I didn't want to screw anything up. And I got to Portland, and it was like, wow, just jack it up. Everybody else is. And I kind of started letting loose again, and I ended up getting traded back to the Spurs the following year with kind of a different attitude because I had some blazer in me, and I needed it. I needed some of that carefree feeling. But the best part about that year, I think I had for my career, I think I had 6 technical fouls in 15 years, and 4 of them came in Portland. That season.
Wow.
So
and plus you got a couple nice tattoos.
Yeah, they're hidden though, but but you know about them.
Who else was on that team? Zach Randolph, Patterson, Rasheed Wallace, Damon Stoudemire. There was like 2 more.
Sean Kemp, Scottie Pippen. Let's see, who else did we have?
Scottie Pippen, that's right. Forgot about that. Hey, Jordan and Tim Duncan are such different guys, and yet they were effective in their own ways. Were there any similarities between them?
Yeah, I think the similarity is in the complete dedication to winning.
Yeah.
And they're different in the way they handle their teammates. You know, Jordan was really tough on teammates. Duncan would come in after getting 38 and 20, and we lose by 1, and he'd come in and he'd go, "My fault, guys, my fault."
Yeah.
You know, and everybody's looking at him like, "You got to be kidding me."
Right.
You know, I had 2 points and missed 5 wide open shots. I think it might have been my fault. But Tim is almost too good in that way because he puts so much pressure on himself and on his own shoulders that he blames himself, and I think he beats himself up too much. And Jordan, you know, he never beat himself up because he believed in himself too much and was so confident that was never going to be an issue. And he was very hard on his teammates, and that was his theory, was that, you know, he had to be to get the best out of everyone. And they were both effective in their own ways, but ultimately they both had the exact same goal, which was to win. And numbers meant nothing to Tim. And I think numbers meant something to Jordan, but not more than winning. You know,
right.
He ultimately was all about winning, and that's what binds those two guys.
You and Jordan had a little scrap once in a practice, didn't you?
We did, yeah, we did in training camp.
I heard you kicked his ass.
Oh, I did, yeah. I hit him right in the fist with my eye, as I remember it.
That was the year after he came back from the baseball sabbatical. And, you know, nobody ever talks about that 95 playoffs, and I think all tapes have been destroyed pretty much. But they lost to Orlando that year. Everybody forgets Jordan actually lost in a playoff series.
Right.
How crazy was that? Just you guys are going through a season, then all of a sudden he shows up in mid-March.
It was bizarre. You know, I remember the first game, you know, in Indianapolis, and talk about flashbulbs. I mean, everybody was anticipating. My favorite part of that was I was driving to the airport with Judd Bushler, and you know, there were 17 games left in the season, and I go to Judd. I said, "What is Phil going to do? I mean, Jordan hasn't been here. Nobody knows him. Does Phil bring him off the bench, or does he start him?" And Judd cuts me off, and he says, "Hey, Steve, just remember one thing. As a general rule, when you have your own statue outside the stadium, you're in the starting lineup." Okay. And I always remember that line from Judd, and that's, you know, of course Phil had to start him, and he started him, and Michael was, I think he shot like 8 for 25 or something. He couldn't make a shot early, and he had to find his legs, and you know, the rest of that run, which only lasted, you know, 6 weeks, it was, you know, he'd get 55 one night, and then, you know, he'd miss 20 open shots the next, and he just never had his consistency. And that's why that summer after we lost, he was a maniac preparing for the season. And that's what set the tone for that 72 win year the next season. He couldn't wait. And training camp that's when we got into that scuffle, and every day was just a war. I mean, it was an incredible tone that he set.
Right. And did you play both of those seasons that he wasn't there?
I
or
did,
just
yeah.
the second one. How
Yeah.
great! I always thought Pippen's '94 season, the first year MJ was gone, was one of the great lost seasons in NBA history. Like, hey, he really should have been the MVP that year, and yet now you have people like wondering whether he's even a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer. Scotty's one of my favorite teammates of all time. I mean, I think, there were times when he felt the pressure of being, second fiddle to Michael and everybody comparing him, especially when Michael, had that 2 years out. I mean, I think Scotty was trying hard to replace him at times. But he was incredible. I mean, he ran the offense. He scored, he defended, he did everything. And he was a great teammate too. He always was looking to share the ball and get guys involved, and just a great guy. All of his teammates really, really enjoyed playing with Scotty.
Yeah, I just feel like he's been treated unfairly by history because the only thing anybody remembers from that season is that he wouldn't come back in the game after they called the play for Kukoc, which I actually thought was somewhat defensible on his part because he had carried that team all season and he had taken the mindset that he was the best guy in the team. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have come in the game, but I can understand at least why he was upset. But geez, that guy, that team didn't have Jordan and still won 48 games and came really close to making the finals that year. He's got to get a little credit.
I think we won more than 48, if I'm not mistaken. I thought we were like maybe at 53 or something.
Yeah, you might have been.
But
like
I mean, what he did was indefensible, though. I mean, I understand if he's maybe upset, but to not come in the game in a playoff game, because Tony Kukoc was much more suited to make a game-winning shot, especially with 2 seconds left. He's a better shooter, and he's 6'11". He can shoot over the top of the defense, and then Phil is vindicated when Tony makes the shot. But I always feel so sorry for Scotty for that happening because you're right, that's what people remember. And so they think he's a knucklehead. And in fact, he's one of the best teammates I ever had. Cared about the game, loved his teammates, loved to share the ball and get people involved, worked hard, but he was emotional and he was at times insecure, and I think that's what led to that moment, and that's what people remember about him, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like nobody remembers him playing the entire 98 playoffs with a bad back and basically like limping around stiff as the second best guy in that team. Yeah. I also, if I had to make an all-time team, like the old thing, like who would you put together to try to beat the aliens if they came here to beat us in basketball? I think he would be the small forward because you wouldn't need 5 scorers, and he was the best defensive player I've ever seen in my life on the perimeter. I just think he would be my guy, my fifth banana on that team.
Yeah, well, it probably depends on who you've got around him. The thing that made him great with the Bulls was that in the triangle, we didn't have a true point guard, so he was our point guard, really. He was, our point forward. And I always thought he was at his best when he was handling the ball and pushing it. You could see over the top of the defense, and he loved to pass. He was really a distributor. Maybe if he had played with a pure point guard who dominated the ball, maybe he wouldn't have been as good offensively. But he was the perfect guy next to Jordan, the perfect complement, and as you said, one of the best defensive perimeter guys ever in the history of the league.
Yeah, and the other thing is if the Blazers hadn't blown that Game 7 in 2000 against the Lakers, then he makes the finals as the best guy on a finals team.
Right.
And I think his career's a little different.
Yeah.
You're in Vegas right now for this FIBA tournament where we send all our best guys and nobody else has any good guys. You've had a chance to watch Kobe for the past week or so. How much does he remind you of MJ with that will to dominate and the effect he has on his teammates and everything?
Well, I watched him in the first game against Venezuela, and he set the tone immediately. He was guarding the ball, a kid named Vasquez who plays for Maryland. Pretty nice little player, but Kobe just decided, I'm going to just take this kid out of the game right away. Pressured him full court the first 5 possessions, forced a couple of turnovers, dove on the floor after a loose ball, just laid out head first, and just set the tone. And it's incredible what he brings to this team that they didn't have a year ago in Japan. Just an edge, a presence. And he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. And Kobe's just incredible. I mean, he's just an amazing personality, and his presence is going to make an enormous difference on this club.
Yeah, I just feel like the one thing this team was missing was somebody who was clearly the guy. And even like there was a blue-white scrimmage that they ran a month ago where it was basically the Americans playing against each other. And at the end of the game, Kobe's team was down 1. You knew he was getting the ball. He ended up making the jumper, and then it came down the other end. LeBron missed the jumper in the game, but he's the guy.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be a real shame if he finishes, his prime without ever being on another good team, which really seems like it might happen.
Well, in a lot of ways, he's had the reverse career that Michael had. It took Michael 7 years, I think, to win a championship. Kobe won almost right off the bat, I think maybe in his third year. And I think the difference is that, Michael had to really grow and learn and figure things out. And, he had 3 years under Dean Smith. So I think he gained more maturity in his journey. And Kobe won right away, didn't go to college, just came right out, and he won 3 championships, I think, before he was, maybe 23 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And now it's been sort of the opposite. Now he's going through all the tough times, and he's already got the winning behind him. I think in a lot of ways, Michael's natural progression was just a better way to develop, where he could see things unfold and learn and grow, whereas Kobe kind of had everything right away, and now he's lost it, and now he's trying to regain it with the Lakers. It's been an interesting run for him.
You're going to church every week and praying that he gets traded out of the conference, aren't you?
I think everybody in the West is, but it's not going to happen. I can't imagine that the Lakers would trade him because there's no way you get equal value. There's no way you get a guy who sells tickets. And ultimately, what's he going to do? I mean, he's not going to just quit and not show up for training camp. They have to mend fences, and I think everybody will, and I think he'll be with the Lakers this year. I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
How much preparation have you done for the 2008 finals when the Suns are going against my beloved Boston Celtics?
Hey, a man can dream, right?
You know what? You brought up how every team needs the token head case. I think we should sign Ruben Patterson, because right now we have the token wild card spot open. Ruben would be great.
He would.
Right?
He would.
He'd kind of do that Steven Jackson.
I'll tell you what, he's athletic, he's a gamer, he gets after it. He's got his issues, but I was with him in Portland, and the guy he brings something to the team. But again, you're right, you have to have a solid foundation with him. But Boston does have that foundation right now with 3 really solid vets and guys who are great players. So that's an interesting one. You might want to call Danny.
Danny doesn't return my calls. They're all mad at me. Let me ask you about we got KG, we got Ray Allen, we got Paul Pierce. Basically 3 guys who are used to being the best guy in their team, and now they're all kind of combining forces to win. But yet there has to be some sort of an alpha dog hierarchy, right? I mean, every team has it. Do you see that? How much of a problem do you see that being with the Suns?
With the Celtics?
Yeah, just like, who gets the ball at the end of the game, who's the best guy. Like, at some point, we have to figure this out, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. They do have to figure it out, and that's going to be the challenge. I think that in some ways, Garnett is best served with a guy, guys like Pierce and Allen to take some of the pressure off him, because Garnett's not Duncan. He's not a guy who's going to power his way to the basket and get to the line and post up. He's in a lot of ways, he's a jump shooter late in games.
Yeah.
And, he likes that turnaround from the baseline. But I think he's always been at his best when he's had a couple of guys, next to him, like, Sprewell and Cassell or Terrell Brandon. So I think the setup works pretty well for Garnett. And I think it's great for the league. I mean, the Celtics are relevant again. They're going to be good. They have to be with those 3 guys. The league is a little more balanced now because Garnett goes from west to east. So, I think it makes a lot of sense for the league, and I think everybody is pretty happy. Everybody who wants the league to succeed, they want Boston to be relevant, and I think they are again.
And it's good for you because KG's out of the conference. Huh? KG's out of the
conference.
Not
in the West. Yeah, get him out of the West.
And you also have Atlanta's pick next year.
Right.
Which
so
now Boston beats up Atlanta a couple times.
Well, we'll see. Atlanta's going to be good. They're talented. The talent is very young, so I don't know if they can put it together yet. We'll see, but they're going to get better, and we do have that pick, and that's obviously we have
blowing up
our eye
Atlanta.
on it. So.
Stop praising Atlanta. You have like the Josh Smith voodoo doll. You're sticking pins in every day.
I'm working the karma.
I mean, You're almost like you have as much of a vested interest in that team losing as you have in the Suns winning next season.
Well, not quite, but we will have our eye on them for sure.
Oh, stop it. Last question. Give me, in terms of the Suns last year, I feel like the best team won that series, but you had Nash's bloody nose in Game 1. You had Tim Donaghy ref in Game 3. You had the Stoudemire Diaz suspensions in Game 5. How hard is it for the Phoenix Brain Trust to reconcile what happened last spring?
Well, we don't have a choice. You just, it's wasted energy if you sit around, wondering what would have happened.
But from your vantage point, it is relevant because you have to decide whether you want to bring that entire team back or not.
Yeah, and I think for us, we feel like wow, we were pretty close. I mean, the series went 6 games despite all these things going against us. So we feel like this is important to keep our core together, and that's why we had to make the Thomas trade so that we could keep Sean and Amari and Steve, and and we pick up Grant Hill and we add to our team, and so we feel really good about where we are. But you know what? There's a lot of teams in the West that are really strong. Dallas is going to be great again, and I think Houston got a lot better. They got much more speed in the backcourt. Denver's going to be tough. I mean, the West is just murder. And so there's no telling where anybody goes, but we feel like we're right in the mix and that it was important to give it another run because, we were close in not only last year, but the last 3 years, two trips to the conference finals. And, we've been close. We're just trying to get over the hump.
And it seems like Nash is now at that point where he's willing to do anything to win the title. You can kind of see it in guys' faces, and I feel like for the first time last year, I just got that sense from him, like, he was laying it all on the line, and it had to happen, and he feels the urgency. I didn't feel that from him in 05 and 06 as much.
Well, maybe even too much last year in a lot of ways. I mean, he wants to win so badly, and sometimes the best way to approach it is to take a little pressure off yourself and say, you know what, you can't control everything. Let's go for it, but let's see if it can happen on its own almost. And I think that's where Grant Hill comes into play. He can take some of the pressure off of Steve. I think Boris Diaw will have a much better season. He's in great shape and playing for the French national team and in the European Championships. I think we do need to take a little pressure off of Steve, both on and off the court, because he has taken on a big load, and we've got talent with Sean and Amari. We've got a lot of guys who can do that. So we feel pretty good about where we are.
Yeah, and Boris being in shape this year will be a lot different than Boris last year. Boris
he came in out of shape.
Yeah.
The World Championships last year were in August. He had the entire month of September. He took the month off. This year, the European Championships end in mid-September. He'll be coming basically right from there to camp. So I think I think he's even admitted that, he thought he had made it. He had that great year the year before, and he felt great about himself, and maybe he let himself go a little bit and showed up not in as good shape as he could have. And I think he's really driven this year. He's a great guy and a great teammate, and I think he's excited to have a good season.
Wow, you just gave us our first fantasy sleeper for the 2007-2008 season. You know what this team needs? This team needs a three-point shooter off the bench. I think you should sign yourself. Player GM.
Yeah.
Has there been a player GM?
You know what? That's a good question. I'm guessing. No, I actually played in an alumni game at Arizona last weekend, and I shot an air ball from 20 feet, and basically made the decision that I was kind of thinking about the player GM thing at that point. Then I decided against it after the air ball.
Well, I always thought you'd be home one day and that game, the famous Steve Kerr game from 2003 would come on. When you're in Dallas, you're down 20, you come in, you make 25 threes in a row. Teammates are jumping up and down. I always thought you would watch that game like, you know what, I can still do this. Screw it. I'm coming back.
You know what? It's so much harder than people think it is. And that's why, I hope Reggie Miller is successful if he does it. But you hear about all these guys wanting to come back. It is so hard because it sounds good. Hey, you can make open shots. Well, you can, but when your body hurts, it's tough to make open shots. And your body's going to hurt. When you've been out of the game for a few years, you're taking you're getting knee in the thigh, you've got the tendonitis kicking in. Making those shots, even when you're open, is so much more difficult when your body doesn't respond. And that's why I think all these guys who are talking about coming back are going to have a much more difficult time than people think.
I feel like he's the one guy who could do it for two reasons. One, because he'll have open threes versus like having to run off all these crazy screens to get open.
Mm-hmm.
But then the thing that nobody's mentioning is this guy's one of the greatest free throw shooters in the history of the league. Even if he's only in the capacity of you bring him in when you're up 2 in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
As almost like the closer in a baseball game. Even I think he'd be valuable for that, you know?
Well, and he'd be valuable because he's an unbelievable professional, and he's going to set a great tone in the locker room. And so even if you bring him on, if you just don't have huge expectations, I think it makes sense. But think of Reggie in his last year with Indiana. He had, he'd have a good game, he'd have a bad game.
Yeah.
He was good. He wasn't great, and he was good. Well, there's no way he's going to be better than that after 2 years out. He's going to be worse than he was 2 years ago. That's inevitable. So as long as you just say, all right, we're not expecting too much, then you take what he is, which is a great pro, a guy who takes great pride in his game and his work ethic, and he'll help the team in spots, but I wouldn't expect a guy who's going to come in and shoot 40% from the three-point line like he has for his whole career. It's too difficult to do physically.
Well, we're getting him for 15 minutes a game. We're signing token head case Ruben Patterson. And then in January, when the Clippers are 15-30 and Sam Cassell decides that he wants a buyout, there's our starting point guard.
There you go.
Steve Kerr, we will see you in the finals.
All right. What was it, 76 or 75? The Suns and the Celtics had a great series.
Oh, yeah, 1976.
76. It'll be a rematch of the 76 final.
A rematch. We'll see you then. Please come back on during the season.
You got it.
All right, take care. All right, we're bringing back a controversial segment called Johnny, Are You Worried Yet?, which we did not do for the last 2 weeks. The first week I just canceled it because I was so upset that the Yankees were gaining ground. Last week we ran out of time, so we couldn't do it, and now I'm getting all these emails that I'm a coward and I have to bring it back and I'm hurting Red Sox karma, all that stuff. So what we're going to do is call my buddy Jacko, who's actually on vacation this week in San Francisco, and he does know we're calling this week, but we're doing it anyway. Let's give him a ring. He's probably hanging out with Barry Bonds. Might be an Alcatraz.
Hello?
Johnny.
Hey there, what's up, buddy?
We're doing a special West Coast edition of Are You Worried Yet?
That's correct.
I'm assuming you're not worried.
No, I'm not. Probably because I've been traveling, so I haven't really seen the abysmal performance that they've put forward 2 out of the last 3 days.
So
luckily, I was in Napa Valley, California, so I was able to get up and watch SportsCenter and see the lowlights, and then go on several wine tastings to John Massaro. So it was good. Perfect timing for them to fall apart.
It sounds like the lost episode of Bronx is Burning or something. Give me your thoughts on the stretch run, because people were absolutely outraged that we canceled this segment the last 2 weeks.
Well, you've claimed to be busy, but I mean, it is suspicious that as the lead shrunk to 4 games is when you would run long talking about NFL video football and Madden 08 or whatever. It's coincidence how these things work out.
Yeah, it was a terrible coincidence.
It really is. It's really odd, you know. And then, ironically, you text messaged me to talk smack about the Yanks, and that's when they won last night. So hopefully you'll tell me, hopefully you'll talk some smack now. This is a good omen, hopefully.
I feel like I'm single-handedly determining the fate of the Red Sox. Every time I open my mouth, something awful happens. Last year I wrote an article comparing Ortiz and Larry Bird, and Ortiz has hit 20 homers in the calendar year since then.
He's really fallen off the earth.
Yeah. You know what's funny though? His monthly splits are actually very consistent. It's just he's not getting a lot of good pitches, and I think he's got a bad knee also. But him and Manny, teams just pitch around because they have J.D. Drew batting fifth, hitting .250 with 6 homers and 45 RBI.
It's like a corpse in the 5-hole. He's not putting the fear of God into anybody, that's for sure.
It's but he's a 5-tool guy, Johnny.
That he is. Yeah.
He's got all the tools we need.
Unfortunately, one of those tools isn't a heart. Other than that, he'd be right back in that thing.
So the Yanks now are playing a relatively tough schedule after feasting on the dregs of the American League East.
True. It's true. They can never beat the Angels. But, they did well against Cleveland. They won 3 out of 4 against Detroit. Sheffield's not playing this weekend. I saw in my complimentary USA Today this morning. So that's good for the weekend.
All right, so give us on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you this week?
I'm like a 1.
A 1 out of 10.
Yeah. Next week's going to be big. It's Armageddon once again. The Yanks, the Yanks Red Sox next week. A lot on the line.
Is that weekend or during the week?
During the week. It's I think it starts next Tuesday, the 28th, 29th, and 30th, something like that.
Okay. All right. So the next time we talk, there will have already been a Yankees Red Sox bloodbath, and and we will get your thoughts then. So you're a scale 1 out of 10 you're a 1 out of 10 on the Are You Worried Yet scale this week.
Exactly.
All right. Enjoy San Francisco. Say hi to Barry Bonds for us.
I'm going to go see him in his giant head tomorrow night, actually. So
good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.